Hello, my name is Chris Riedesel. I am an arts associate with the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs. Today I have with me Stephen Rains, one of our 2020 COLA Fellowship recipients. Normally, our recipients get to have their culminating event at least the performing and literary artists get to have their culminating event at grand performances. The COVID-19, of course, has shut everything down event-wise. So we've moved the event online, but I wanted to give Stephen an opportunity to provide the introduction he would have provided had he had the opportunity to do so in front of a live audience. So now is your chance, Stephen, to do the introduction that you would have done. So let's go ahead.
All right, thanks. So for this grant, I worked on a collection of poems about one of my best friends, Michael Church, who died in the year 2000. And he was older than I was, and he died of AIDS-related complications. And at one point later on in his life, I even tried to be his caregiver, and that didn't really work out. And it was a very meaningful and complex relationship. And so I chose for this grant to really focus on that relationship. And I'm really thankful for the DCA for selecting me to be a COLA recipient. It's an incredible honor, and I'm in a great company of artists this year and previous years. If it were a live audience, I would actually thank the audience. So instead, I would like to thank the people watching this video. And what else would I have said? Yeah, it's kind of interesting right now to think about the times where we met in person, and we all gathered together, and now things have been virtual for a few months now, and so it's interesting to think about what it would have been like.
Yeah, with that in mind, when the process started, which was when you were notified a year ago that you were a COLA recipient, there was no such thing as COVID-19. There was no civil unrest over Black Lives Matter. At the time, we gave you a fellowship, and we asked you, hey, create new work, and you had your plan. So in the time since then until now, was there anything did any of this impact your writing? Did you have a lot of your writing done beforehand? Were there any themes that came up because of any of this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually started right away on this collection and the focus, which was actually very different than my proposal, because so much time had elapsed from the time I wrote the proposal to the grant application to when I was awarded it, that just this relationship, this friendship I had with him, and the issues kind of surrounding that friendship really were so powerful for me that I felt the heat there, and I really wanted to explore that. So that's what I focused on. So by the time that COVID happened, I was well into the work, in fact, almost finished with it. And it just had a momentum all its own. And it also, you know, I don't know about other artists, but for me, sometimes it could, you know, during such a big moment in history right now, it can feel as if my personal experiences are meaningless compared to what's going on in the culture and in other people's lives, and the slaughtering of that's happening. Although Karen Finley, the performance artist, she has a great quote that life is more important than art, but life is meaningless without art. And that's something that's actually kept me engaged in my own art practice, and knowing that there is a place for art in the world, even art that might not be addressing this situation directly, that I think that there are so many universals that it's the artist's job to keep producing, definitely be socially engaged as well. So I've been doing both.
In terms of producing art, how did the COLA Fellowship help you out with that?
One, I think the first way the COLA Fellowship helped me out was that it's incredibly validating to know that out of the hundreds and hundreds of applicants that I was selected. It's incredibly flattering and honoring, and it also feels kind of in a way that you've been knighted, and so that's nice. It's nice to know that people have faith in the work that I'm creating or that I was proposing to create, and also financially is that I was concerned less about finances this year. And then with that weight off of my shoulders, how much more work I was able to produce. That I always kind of considered myself maybe a very slow writer. And that isn't necessarily the case. This year, I wrote almost an entire collection of poetry. And it was because I didn't have the financial concerns or the work concerns weighing on me so heavily that I was able to focus on my work and devote time to it and not be pulled in so many directions.
This collection of poetry, the online video that will be presented, will be selections from the poetry that you've written. We recorded a whole bunch. I don't know how much will end up on the final video that the public will be able to see, but you said you nearly wrote a complete collection of poetry. Can you tell us the title and what your plans are in publication so the public can see the full work that you've created?
Yeah, it's the collection is called The Bodiless Powers, and I think that it does have the themes of mentorship and friendship and intergenerational friendship. It also is talking about HIV at a very interesting time in our history in the year 2000. I met Michael Church, I think in 1994, 95. And you know, things are so different now to kind of reflect on that, though it might seem like such a long time ago. It actually wasn't that long ago. And I also, you know, doing this gave me a chance to reflect on myself and who I was then. So at the time, it's kind of almost writing a memoir, and you know, with the focus of this friendship. And I recognized how young I was and how much I didn't know at the time. And at the time, I thought I knew so much, and I was incredibly naive and uninformed and not worldly. And at the same time, I was really resilient and bold and caring and so loving. So it's really so it's interesting to kind of, you know, for this year in a way to kind of live back there, that every time I sat down to write, it was kind of living that time and reflecting on it with the lens of today, which was really rewarding to look back at, like, not only who was Michael Church, but also who was Stephen Rains at that time.
That's very thoughtful there. When you were looking at both Michael Church and yourself in that time, was there any reflection on where you are now, like the difference between the two? Was it just a purely looking back and just getting a snapshot of the world back then?
Yeah, in terms of, you know, being a gay male, I was not going to live the life that my parents had led. And to meet Michael Church at the time I did in my life, he kind of created this great blueprint for me. And I wouldn't be the person that I am today if it weren't for that friendship and mentorship. And to meet someone who was so unabashedly gay and and such an independent thinker. It was so, it was needed for me. It was just the person for me to meet at that time. And so who I am now, I would definitely not be who I am now if it weren't for that friendship with him, but also the loss of him. And maybe the reason it's so powerful right now for me is that I just surpassed the age that Michael was when he died. And so in a way, I could always kind of track my life and compare it to Michael. But now that I'm this age, I'm kind of out there alone without him, and without kind of seeing like, oh, well, what would Michael do, or knowing what Michael did at a certain age. And so, so in a way, it feels a little guideless right now. And I think maybe that's why the work was so profound for me.
Being there in the audience, I did feel a certain sense of the profoundness, and also the celebration of his life and the relationship. Before we close out, is there one thing you'd like viewers to be able to take away from listening to your recital or reading the poetry later when they are able to get the full collection? Is there one thing you'd like for them to take away from the experience?
That's a good question. And I'm not so sure there's one thing I would want people to take away. Hopefully, I want to introduce them to my friend Michael Church, and someone who I think mattered in the world. But also, he's not the only one. I'm sure anyone who is going to watch the video or read the work is going to reflect on the loved ones that they've lost, and how do we mourn, and who. And so, what do I want them to take away? I think in a way, how I learned more about myself, I think by reading this, maybe people are going to reflect on their own relationships, the people that helped shape their lives, as well as the loss that people have experienced, and how that also has an impact on their life.
I think that's very poignant for this moment in time. Well, thank you for joining us today, Stephen. We look forward to when our public will be able to see the work on the video that we've created, as well as to read it later. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye.